Hey guys, how's it going? I thought it'd be kind of fun today to just go over some lines that were kind of important to me growing up. I may have already done a video kind of like this, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to go over stuff that just kind of inspired me over the years, especially the early years, and the kinds of stuff that I was playing right when I got into music, and just how it's progressed over the years and what kind of changes I've made. But yeah, that's basically the idea. So I thought it'd be fun to start this out with a little bit of Metallica, because one of the first bands that I was really into when I was basically in middle school was Metallica. So the line I was just playing, starting this one off, was a little bit of the kind of bass interlude of Orion by Metallica, and it's the Burton bass line. So that was kind of one of those songs that I learned just, I think I was in the summer after 5th grade. And that was the kind of stuff that I was working on. And the reason I think it was cool that I worked on metal early on like that was it kind of developed my speed and my right hand technique, which was kind of cool. So same song, but one of the other riffs in the song before the breakdown, there was this kind of quick thing going on. So I was very fortunate to be into Metallica then, because that developed a lot of my right hand speed just right from the start. And I wasn't great at it right at the beginning, but that was something that I worked on. Hey, Seth, how's it going? Nice look with the sunglasses. Yeah, I'm about as blind as can be with these two, wearing them inside, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to do that, just to do something a little bit different for the thumbnail, and I just left them on for the video. But yeah, that one to me is a really big thing. So Metallica played a big role on, one, me not switching over to guitar, because I had a sibling that played guitar, and basically I was trying not to copy them, but at the same time doing very similar things. So I played bass, and honestly, that was the reason I initially got into bass. But I was in 5th grade, and I didn't want to copy them, and then I heard the bass. So at first, when I saw the bass, I thought it looked kind of weird, like it just looks like it has too few strings. The string's really thick and it's longer. It's just kind of a weird looking instrument. That's really how I felt about the bass. And then I heard someone play it, and I was so tiny that like I could feel every bit of me like vibrating, just standing in front of this, like, I want to say it was a 610 SWR Goliath cab, and someone was just thumping away with the volume up pretty loud, and it was in Mars Music. I don't even think those exist anymore. And that was the reason I started playing. And then one of the first bands I got into was Metallica, because I went over to a friend's house and they had the Master of Puppets CD, and we were just kind of like jamming out to that. And that ended up being the first CD I ever bought, which I think means I started playing bass before I got my first CD. I might have that a month or two out of order, but I'm not quite sure there. Hey, Alan, how's it going? But like I said, I'm kind of glad that I got into metal music up front, because it kind of forced me to develop some right hand technique. And honestly, some of the left hand stuff, like if you listen to the song Master of Puppets, all that stuff is like a really good finger workout on the left hand too. So I kind of had to start using my pinky right away to be able to play that stuff that I wanted to play. But it wasn't the stuff that I learned. It was just the stuff that kept me really excited about playing bass. So before I played that, like I said, I had a sibling that got into guitar before I did, and they were learning things like Lenny Kravitz's Fly Away, which is probably the first song that I learned, if I'm not mistaken. And I didn't necessarily learn it right. I just played the root note of what my sibling was playing. So if they were playing the power chords going dun 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 dun, then I was just going. which is close to the bass line, but I think the bass line's actually doesn't have all those walk-ups in it. I think it was just. So I learned that first, and I didn't know how to do slap bass, so I didn't learn the first part. But later on, I learned that little, you basically slap and then slide into the note and then pop the octave. So, and you do that just on the same chords that are in the chorus as well. So that was probably the first song that I learned. I think other songs at the same time, probably simple Green Day stuff, but I didn't play it like Mike did. I played it more like, once again, just doubling the power chords, because I was just kind of like taught that I could do that. So I was kind of just following along with things. And then I didn't start taking lessons till basically the summer after I got into playing bass. And honestly, I played a show before then because there was a 5th grade talent show, and I had a really close friend that played drums, and they found out that I could play bass, and they're like, hey, why don't you play this? We'll play Flowing by the band 311. So if you know the song, oh man, people really like the glasses. I guess I'll keep them on for a little bit longer. But I can't see anything. It's, I guess, like helping with this light that I have illuminating my face. If you can kind of see the reflection, the ring light. It I guess the sunglasses help a little with that, but they don't help for reading comments. Anyway, Flowing, I learned it from my friend's brother, because he was going to play guitar with us, because there was nobody in 5th grade that really played guitar that well. And he was going to show me the bass part, and I told him, don't dumb it down. I want to play it right. Don't dumb it down. Of course, he dumbed it down for me and just didn't tell me. Because I had just started, and there was no way I could play the rhythms that were needed to play. So instead of going, Flowing has like a long way to close my eyes. That was it. Anyway, I can't quite remember it, but something like that. And then the second part has like. And so he just got me to play. And I didn't really know any better for that. So in 5th grade, the bass was taller than me. I really could have used a U-bass back then, but they didn't have them at the time. And as far as I know, or I had never seen one if they did. So I was just, I don't know, less than 5 feet tall or something, and the bass was about as tall as me. I remember that. It might have been taller than me, but it might have just come up to here. But anyway, that was kind of cool. So that one's always nostalgic. And then over the summer, I got to see them 311 play it live, and that was the first concert I attended. So unless you count like band concerts and maybe one local radio show that I went to with a friend, the first real concert where I wasn't watching tribute bands playing, but I was actually watching the bands play everything, was that summer after I played that talent show. And I went to it because 311 was playing. Incubus opened up for them, and they're another one that, there are a lot of nostalgic Incubus bass lines for me too. But yeah, that's kind of cool. And then Seth says, one of my favorite metal bass lines to play on any bass, uke bass, or whatever bass is Pantera's Cowboys from Hell. I'm trying to remember if I have the right song in mind on that one, because I know Walk is dun, 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 dun. Is Cowboys from Hell the dun, 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 dun? No, that doesn't sound like the right song. I don't know. I can't remember which one Cowboys from Hell is, but I definitely heard it. I'm not sure that I ever played it, but it's a good one. But I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head. But yeah, so I was a really big Metallica fan. So after playing the 311 song, I kept jamming with that friend. He kept introducing me to bands like Incubus and other things like that. So then I got to see them play live. And after that, we kept playing songs like that. So I remember in high school later on with the same drummer, which was, several years later. I think in middle school, we didn't really hang out much. But in high school, I'm trying to remember how there's like an Incubus song off of Fungus Among Us. Was it? I can't remember it. But no, I can't remember. Called Hylicus, Hilikus. So it was kind of fun to play that one. It's a terrible pun there, but we don't have to worry about that. But yeah, that one was kind of fun because it was a lot of slap bass stuff, and I like trying to write slap riffs with this drummer. And he was the one that kind of introduced me to 16th note rhythms and got me to play on the E's and U's rather than playing on one and like, syncopating rhythms and just kind of getting into that idea. I really owe it to him because he was in the marching band and I didn't do marching band. So I learned a lot of that stuff through him. But before I got to there, I know in middle school, I was still doing a lot of Metallica stuff and I thought I could play anything because I play some Metallica stuff. I learned a little bit of, Anesthesia, which doesn't really sound good without distortion. I wonder, no, there's no distortion on this amp. I guess I'd have to plug my effects pedals in to make that work. But I learned that one up to a certain point. So I thought being able to play that stuff meant I could play anything, but I just didn't really know that many bass players at the time. And so I remember I had friends that were into Tool, and one of them gave me the tabs for Schism. And so that was one of the first songs, like with the pick, besides Green Day stuff that I was learning. So that still has a big impact on me, just learning all those songs. I know the pieces fit because I watched them tumble down. I learned a lot of stuff. I remember he also gave me the tab for I'm not sure how to pronounce it. What they're kind of getting at. The album it's like Anima or I don't even know how to pronounce it because encyclopedia. So I guess it'd be Enema, but you kind of get the idea of what word they're suggesting with that. The song was spelled differently than the album, but there's that whole. I have to tune down for that one. What's that? No. What is it? I can't remember how it goes, but there's a lot of pull-offs and power chords and stuff in that song. But very, very cool stuff. But it was all right, Seth. You made me laugh on that one. I don't think I'm going to repeat that one on the stream, but interesting joke about Elon Musk naming his kid. But that's good. And then Seth says, just do Orion, or For Whom the Bell Tolls. Problem with For Whom the Bell Tolls on the U-Bass is we don't have enough frets to do it. So somebody actually asked a request on that. So I had a couple of ideas on how to make it happen. I have to use the tuner to get it closer because those overtones aren't really helping that much. Okay. So you could play it down here. Or you could do false harmonics. But that's harder to get in tune and kind of just get them exact. So that'd be kind of harder to do For Whom the Bell Tolls. So yeah, but that's a good song. For Whom the Bell Tolls is a good finger workout in some other sections of the song too. Let me turn this treble down. So right, all that stuff. And then there's some cool stuff in the rest of the song. So he's doing a lot of stuff, and I can't remember which of these things are from the live version versus the album. But I remember seeing him play it live, and he's hitting a note and then slapping the string, like talked about before with the backbeat, just adding the backbeat to something. He doesn't need to because the snare is hitting on beats 2 and 4, but it's kind of a cool sound. And when I listened back to the recording, I realized it wasn't just something he was doing live; it was actually on the recording too. So just kind of an interesting thing that you kind of hear later on going through these things. But yeah, the Metallica stuff, just all the way through, it inspired me a lot. Of course, things like Green Day inspired me a lot back then. There were certain things where it's just like I wanted to learn everything that anybody considered hard on the bass. So like things like what is it, Longview? What was that? And my favorite part was the that whole stuff was a lot of fun. And then I remember one of the ones I never really got I could play was Rancid's Maxwell Murderer. So if you ever heard, or Maxwell Murder, if you've ever heard of Rancid, they have a bass player named Matt Freeman, and he plays with the pick, and he's just really, really fast. And I think that's like the fastest solo that he played was on that Maxwell Murder thing. And if I try to play, it's going to sound like, but what's it? I can't remember all the notes, but it's like the real tempo is like 1, 2, 3, right? So it's like that's just the verse part and everything, and then when he does the solo, it's like, I can't imitate it, but he's really, really fast. And so that was always inspiring trying to play it. Recently, I was trying to do it slowed down, but I already forgot like 3/4 of the notes. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff. And I almost felt like he was just kind of like messing around and stuff, but he played pretty cleanly anyway. And I was working on that for a while, a couple weeks ago, but apparently I lost all of it. So I'll have to work on that one again. Pretty tricky. And Seth says he's seen Rancid. Nice. Very cool. Yeah, and The Offspring's another band that I really like listening to. I think Self-Esteem, if I can remember how to play it. Yeah, that whole thing. That was kind of a cool bass line to me because the bass was so prevalent in the mix. And then I got into like some bass magazines. I remember when they started selling the bass magazines at the local grocery store and stuff. I think it was Bass World had just come out, and I was just getting every issue and just kind of like going through it. And I think it ended up getting canceled at some point. But Guitar World's Bass Guitar magazine, that's what it was called, I think, just Bass Guitar. And it had things like Roundabout in it. So, all that stuff. And it had a lot of Rush. It had a little bit of Tool. It had some Primus, of course. And I can't remember who got me into Primus, or if it was just from hearing the South Park theme and then other people talking about it or not. But Primus is another one. I learned a lot of lines. I can't say that I learned them all right, but I learned a lot of the lines, and they're just a lot of cool. Stuff like that is pretty cool for Primus. And I remember in the talent show in 9th or 10th grade, or one of those years, it might have been 11th or 12th. I did the talent show 2 years, and I can't remember which 2 years it was. But either way, I ended up doing some Primus. We did Jerry Was a Race Car Driver with a slight edit, so we didn't have to cuss or anything. And I did like a bass solo, and I can't even remember the bass solo that I played. I can remember one of the other ones that I liked better, but I don't think it was the one that I played there. It's just an original. Was it? I can't remember now. I can't remember. Anyway, I called it Sonata in E minor, and that one's somewhere. I redid it on the full scale bass where I had enough frets to do everything. And that one's somewhere on my channel, I think from several years back. But yeah, so things that kind of like inspired me there. Primus inspired me. Tool inspired me. 311 inspired me, although I never really learned that many more of their bass lines. Just a lot of things like that. And then Incubus had a lot of stuff that I thought was really cool. But I'm trying to think of ones that I like learned. So things I learned for talent shows. There was a talent show in 9th grade, and they didn't have a bass player. I learned all on the Watchtower, but I didn't really play it like Jimi played the bass. Jimi Hendrix played the bass on All on the Watchtower on the Jimi Hendrix version. So I thought that was kind of cool that he did that. So I just played really busy to kind of imitate him, but not actually playing the line. And everybody I always played with always played it in the key of A minor instead of C sharp minor. So just kind of interesting things like that. You might come across that a lot of people play things a couple steps down from the original. But anyway, stuff like that. Green Day. I never really thought they were like that crazy of a band or anything, but I did like working on some of the stuff, and it challenged me a little bit with the pick because I wasn't quite as good with the pick. And obviously with Rancid, I mean, that was just so cool to listen to, but I'll have to keep working on the solo. Maybe one day I'll post a video of it on Instagram or a shorts or something at some point. But that one's a fun one to play too. So what about you guys? What lines were nostalgic for you? Kind of switch over here so I can read the comments easier and say hi to everybody. Hi, Daniel. How's it going? And then is it Enoch? A uke blues brother. Yeah, I had the sunglasses for fun. Oh, I mean, obviously blues bass lines. There were some things that are kind of nostalgic for me. They're just that cliche line. It's probably one of the first 12 bars I learned. And I mean, there was like a bass line in an orchestra book that was called like Happy Blues or something. And I wasn't even in an orchestra, but I had a friend that was in it, and I probably learned that from him. So there's that kind of stuff. Trying to think of other things that I got into when I was younger. So when I first started playing, I liked bands like Eve 6, but I didn't really learn any of the bass lines. It wasn't really the bass that I liked about them in particular. Although I remember at the end of one of the songs, there was a bass slide. At that first concert I went to that had Incubus and 311, Disturbed was also there. So that was kind of cool getting to meet them. And Nickelback was there. I got Disturbed and Nickelback's autograph because they weren't quite as popular at the time as 311 and Incubus. So 311 was the headliner. Incubus was opening up for them, and Disturbed and Nickelback were somewhere in the middle towards the end, but they weren't quite as popular yet. They just had like one song apiece on MTV at the time. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So when I was in middle school, I was in the jazz band, and we learned a whole bunch of just kind of jazz band arrangements of things, and none of that really stuck. Although Satin Doll, I wish I had learned it kind of more correctly back then, because that one was kind of fun. And then there was like, I'm trying to remember, it was Last Night at the Bingle or something, but there was a really cool bass line in one of those that was kind of fun to play. And hold on one second. Let me close out of this. All right. So, yeah, so there was just a bunch of stuff like that. And then we had a basically the instructor of the jazz band also had her own professional jazz band that she was a kind of a director of. Maybe she played something into, maybe she played trumpet or something. So I'm not sure, but I remember he came there and I thought I was a hot shot because I could play Tool and I could play, Metallica stuff. And I just felt like I could play anything. I couldn't read as well, as I'd like to, but I could play anything if I worked on it. Right. And so then he's like, oh, okay, cool. So, who Victor Wooten is then, if you can play a lot of different stuff, it's like, and you seem pretty good. So you must know who Victor Wooten is. And it's like, no. So then he realized I didn't know a lot of people. So he wrote down single-handedly in like 8th grade, he wrote down Victor Wooten, Jaco Pastorius, Ray Brown. He wrote a lot of other names, on there, John Patitucci, and single-handedly introduced me to all of those really great bass players. Marcus Miller, I think, was on the list too. And he just introduced me to all that stuff, which I thought was really cool. And so then after that, of course, I just had those names circling around in my head and didn't know what to listen to from them and didn't really follow up on it. And then one day I was in the Barnes & Noble bookstore looking at their CD section, and I see a 4-string bass Sweat just kind of like hanging out on a CD, just the headstock and everything, and a hand on it. And I went over to it, pulled it out, and it was Victor Wooten's A Show of Hands. So I ended up buying that CD, and of course that changed my outlook on bass playing and it humbled me a lot and made me realize I had a long way to go and would always have a long way to go to be able to learn everything on the bass. But hearing Classical Thump was probably the thing that blew my mind. But also, You Can't Hold No Groove. I think the first time I heard it, I wasn't listening closely and didn't even realize that it was just bass. That's how like crazy that was for my ears at the time. I thought there was some percussion with them separate of his bass. And then when I realized it was all bass, I was blown away, And then, of course, after that, I got Marcus Miller and all sorts of stuff like that. But hearing stuff like, it's hard to do on the flat wound. All that stuff. I can't do it on the flat ones for some reason. My hand just sticks to them differently. But yeah, all that stuff. So all that Victor Wooten stuff's kind of nostalgic for me too. And then getting to go see him play live several times at local venues. Anyone in Atlanta probably went to the Variety Playhouse and saw him there the most. With Primus, I saw them at the Tabernacle, but the smaller things that Les Claypool did, I saw them at the Variety Playhouse. So Seth, you probably know those places from the Atlanta scene. So I'm going to read what Seth has to say about nostalgic music for him. He says he was brought up on jazz and a little bit of classical music. And as far as rock, his parents were into the Rolling Stones and the Grateful Dead. Very cool. I had some friends that were into the Grateful Dead, so I got a little bit of Grateful Dead influence. But honestly, some of that influence was really through things like playing the Sublime version of Scarlet Begonias and listening to that kind of stuff too. And then you were more of a John Entwistle. Okay, cool. So I remember like in the bass magazines, the My Generation solo ended up in there, and of course I had to learn that. What was it? What was that? I can't remember what he did, but it's pentatonic type stuff. Yeah, so I mean, all that stuff was kind of fun to learn out of the bass magazines and everything. But yeah, John Entwistle was a big influence, just listening to him mostly, and then learning that one line out of that magazine because it just had little snippets of things that were cool. I feel like that was like a UK based magazine that I ended up getting from Barnes & Noble or something. but I learned a lot of stuff out of there. I went through a lot of the exercises and things. And then Pink Floyd, cool. And Led Zeppelin, yeah. So that bass guitar magazine by Guitar World actually got John Paul Jones to do some articles for them. And I don't think he made his tabs though, because there was one where he was talking about what he was doing in Immigrant Song on those walk-ups, where he was doing the, and when he was talking about that part, he typed clearly in the article that they were all Mixolydian scales, Mixolydian modes, A Mixolydian, B Mixolydian, C Mixolydian, and then with the extra chromatic note at the end. And so he typed that all out, but the person that notated it on the tabs didn't notate it that way. They didn't do a Mixolydian on each one. So I thought that was kind of interesting that he wrote the columns, but maybe somebody else did the visuals and they just didn't get double checked that one time. But cool being able to read his insight on creating those riffs and just kind of teaching them to you, and then talking about things like on Ramble On. He was talking about he played that one with just his pointer finger, kind of like in the style of James Jamerson. So he had a lot of influence from James Jamerson, and so when he was doing that, like, what was it? Let me think for a second. Not just this part. Not just that stuff, but the what was it? He was playing all that with one finger too. So of course I had to practice doing that. And he said the reason he was doing it was not just to show off, not just to play fast or anything, but it was because of the consistency of sound. So like if you go versus, you hear how like the second has a totally different sound because you're hitting a slightly different part of the string and all those other things. So he was really doing it with one finger to get a consistent sound out of the note, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, so obviously John Paul Jones was a big influence too, because he wrote in that article and I got to read his bass lines and stuff. Going back to Metallica, Jason Newsted also had some lines that I really liked. The My Friend of Misery intro. That was always really cool to me. I think that's my favorite thing of his that I got out of the Metallica stuff. Pink Floyd. So Seth mentioned that Pink Floyd's very nostalgic. I would say the same for me because I ended up playing some of that stuff with different people. Obviously, the Money bass line was one of those riffs in that bass magazine. So I ended up learning that. And I ended up learning how to sing and play that one. So that was always fun. I know Money is not probably the song that you were thinking of, but that was probably one of the earlier songs that I learned that had an odd time signature, and I probably didn't even think about it when I learned the song. But yeah, I always thought that was kind of a cool one. And then I think of other things that were nostalgic for me, but I'll keep going with your list because you have a good list, Seth. So that's cool. And then of course the Beatles. Yeah, obviously. My dad had a whole lot of like tapes, like cassette tapes and CDs, and so I would listen to them from time to time. And so he had a lot of Beatles stuff, and he had stuff like REM and the Cranberries and things like that. And I didn't really try to play the bass on all that stuff, but I did enjoy playing through that. And in high school, I was in a band called Free Beer because we didn't have much creativity, and somebody was just making the joke like, hey, you should call yourselves Free Beer. And so because we didn't have a name, they just kind of gave us that name sort of, and we're just like, okay. So we were one of the mini bands named Free Beer in high school, and we just played a lot of like parties and the one local club that would let us play at it and everything. And we did things like REM songs. We did a little bit of Collective Soul stuff, and I'm trying to think of what else. Probably a little bit of Beatles. I'm not sure. A little bit of Allman Brothers. So Allman Brothers were there too. Did you get any free beer out of that name? At the time I was in the band, I didn't really drink. So yeah, when I was like 14 and 15 and 16, I didn't really drink at all. I think I had my first beer at 18. So, and I didn't go crazy or anything at 18. No, that's not true. Okay, first beer at 18. I may have had my first drink at 16 and then didn't touch anything until I was 18. But it wasn't beer. Anyway, but no, I didn't really get any free beer out of that name that I can think of. But I don't think we were still a band when I did start drinking. But anyway, yeah, they played a whole lot of stuff that was a lot of fun, and we did a lot of originals too, which was a lot of fun. And yeah, so I was very fortunate just playing bass. A lot of people needed a bass player, so I probably played in like 15 different bands in high school. I remember there was a metal band that wasn't too fond of me, and I got kicked out for playing on the drummer kit without his permission, which, whatever, you live and you learn. And there was another band, or it may have been the same band. I think it was a different band I got kicked out of because I was like playing Linus and Lucy I was supposed to play piano in that band, and I was playing Linus and Lucy instead of whatever song we were supposed to play. Speaking of that kind of stuff. So once I got into Victor Wooten and some of those other people, I got into people like Stu Hamm and learned all the all that kind of stuff. So that was about the first year or two of high school that I got into doing all the tapping stuff and doing all that other stuff. Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff that I went into. So Alan, just to kind of sum it up, I started with I got into Metallica when I was like way younger, so a lot of Cliff Burton stuff kind of inspired me. I was very fortunate to really like the song Orion, probably 3 or 4 months into playing. And so that really gave me a lot of right hand technique. So, everything from that bass interlude in the middle and the whole. I'm trying to play it too fast. Everything from that. Then the one that really built up the speed was the lick that was like. And I didn't quite get it fully up to speed at that age, but just the fact I was practicing it got me alternating my fingers, just a few months into playing and, learning these patterns. They're almost like power chord shapes and box shapes and all those things just very, very early on in playing. So that really helped a lot. And so how the first show that I played, I ended up playing a 311 song, and that was before I learned all the Metallica stuff. So just a whole bunch of nostalgic stuff like that. Then we covered some of the stuff that Seth was talking about, the John Entwistle, John Paul Jones, and some Pink Floyd stuff. So Roger Waters bass lines and everything. And I didn't really learn that much Pink Floyd stuff. I liked things like there was that whole fretless intro for Hey You, which I think someone later said might have been Gilmore playing the fretless bass. But so just like a lot of stuff like that. The Money bass line. And of course, I'm trying to think what else. The punk rock stuff that I listened to: Green Day, Offspring, Rancid. Although I can't play that Rancid stuff. There's like really fast picking solos. What was it? And it's like that, but it's like 10 times faster. I can't play that fast really. But if you hear the song, like the main tempo is like. And that's like eighth notes, right? And then, it's that speed. And I can't play it that fast, but you get the idea. Yeah. It's harder to play with the pick. So I was kind of working on that the other week and didn't get that far on it. But that's the kind of stuff that I kind of grew up working on. And then in middle school, there was a band director that brought in her personal jazz band as instructors for the rest of the jazz band to learn from. And so the bass instructor introduced me to Victor Wooten music and Jaco Pastorius and all these other names that I hadn't really heard before because I was more of a metalhead, and liked punk rock and just popular music at that point. And so then in high school, I really picked up on trying to play Victor Wooten stuff and trying to play Marcus Miller and just all these other things that were really inspiring. So that's kind of where I'm at. So all that's nostalgic all the way up through high school. Then I'm trying to think after that, just playing with different bands. There are certain songs that kept coming up in different bands. So those might be kind of nostalgic. When I was 19, I got into a blues band and we played, I'm not sure if I was 18 or 19. I think I was 19 at the time. And we played a whole bunch of stuff. Just a lot of blues stuff. So that's about the time that I really got into the blues and kind of learned the ins and outs of the style rather than just thinking I'm a hot shot that can play everything. I actually had to, groove and make the song sound good. And so there was a drummer in that band, guy went by Mocha Man, and he would just always tell me play a little bit more relaxed, not so ahead of the beat, but right with it, or maybe even slightly behind on certain songs. And I don't recommend playing behind the beat too much, really for bass, because if you play behind the beat, you slow the band down. Someone has to establish the beat, whether that's you or the drummer. So you can't really play behind the beat if both of you are trying to, because then you're just actually slowing the tempo down at that point. But we ended up playing a lot of different things. There's a song called Help Me that was basically Green Onions with words. I'm trying to remember who did the song Help Me, but it's just mostly. And I'd actually followed a really good bass player before that. And so he had a lot of recordings. I learned a lot of these songs from their recordings, not from the originals. So some of the songs I ended up playing wrong because I was playing more like he was doing. We ended up doing songs like Walking the Dog or Walk the Dog. I'm not sure if it's Walk or Walking now, but you get the idea. Walk the Dog. And then trying to think of all the different songs we did. Dust My Broom, because we had a slide player, so he was playing that. So just a whole bunch of classic blues songs that I think are a good idea for you guys to listen to if you haven't, because especially in the cities where blues was big. So like if you live anywhere near Chicago or probably even like New York, New Orleans, and there's a pretty decent blues scene in Atlanta. And there was just like a barbecue place that we would play at every Sunday, every other month at first. We would switch off. So we'd play all the Sundays in January, then March, then May, that kind of thing, every other month. And then it ended up being every 3 months after a while. But still for 7 years or something, we ended up doing that. And And so that was a lot of blues being played, but we also snuck some classic rock in there, even though the venue wasn't too happy about it. So we played a lot of Hendrix stuff. We played some Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff, a lot of Allman Brothers stuff. So we like doing Whipping Post on that one. So I guess that's a nostalgic song, playing Whipping Post with those guys. Yeah. What was it? I might be getting the rhythm wrong now. It's been so long. But you get the idea. So there were a lot of cool little bass lines there. The fact that it had like the guitar part just kind of walks up chords like that, but the bass line just stays on the A. Yeah. And Seth says, great blues bass player, Donald Duck Dunn. Yeah, someone made the Blues Brothers reference. Now it's kind of cool seeing all these different musicians that you hear about the time and you've heard their bass lines all the time. For whatever reason, it took me a long time to get around to watching Blues Brothers, and I actually watched it on an airplane when I went to the Dallas, Texas gig. So what was that, like 3 months ago? I think it was 3 months ago. Anyway, so I finally saw it, and it's like, oh, well, there's Donald Duck Dunn mentioned and actually in there playing. So it's just kind of cool seeing the faces of these guys you hear about all the time. So if you haven't seen the Blues Brothers movie, it's kind of cool because there are a lot of big name people in there, including the musicians that are backing them up. So yeah, so a lot of cool blues stuff like that. Trying to think of some of the other ones that we did. We did a lot of Allman Brothers. Like I just said, we did that one, and we did One Way Out was the other one that we like to do a lot. That we probably did at almost every gig we played. So that one's kind of fun. And a funny story about that one, originally I didn't really know what the bass line did, so I was just doubling the guitar part. And I thought that was the bass line too, and never really listened that much. And then that kind of thing is the actual bass line. So it's kind of interesting just learning those things on the bandstand, having people explain, hey, you're not playing the bass part, right? And just kind of having to learn that way. So I kind of want to encourage you guys, even if you're learning songs on the spot, learning songs from guitar players, not knowing what the songs do, just go and play gigs anyway. Go and play shows if you can get them. I know right now with the pandemic and everything, it might be a little bit harder to find shows, but even if you play the songs wrong, as long as you play them correct enough, people will let you know, and you'll kind of like learn and get better as you go. And sometimes you'll just go back on your own and listen to songs that you've been playing for years and realize that you weren't playing them correctly, and go and fix that. And yeah, Seth, it might have. Did they have all the Booker T and the MGs? Did they have all of them backing them up on? Was that the backing band on the Blues Brothers? I might be wrong about that, but Booker T and the MGs. Yeah, cool. But yeah, Donald Duck Dunn, great bass player for sure. And yeah, they're just a whole bunch of people. Was it Tommy? I think it's Tommy Shannon that played with Stevie Ray Vaughan. He's really good too. So a lot of those lines are really great. Just the bassist and the guitarist. Okay, cool. But yeah, a whole bunch of blues. So I did a lot of blues, and then I started playing with a singer named Zabe, and he did a whole lot of things like Billie Jean. So I ended up learning that probably to play with him, and a lot of more R&B stuff like that. But the band that we played with, the other members of the band, kept pushing him to do some classic rock stuff and some other things too. So we ended up doing a lot of the songs that overlapped with the classic rock groups I was already playing with. But we also did that. And so there was a little bit more R&B there. We did things like Let's Stay Together, Marvin Gaye, What's Going On. So we got Al Green and Marvin Gaye kind of stuff. And so learning all that stuff, it kind of opened me up to more of the Motown bass lines and more of the kind of stuff, even though that was more I don't know some of that was Motown. You get the point. And yeah, so all that kind of opened me up to that. And then of course, Bass magazines probably opened me up to all this stuff before then, and kind of influenced me because there was one, like I said, I think it was a UK bass magazine, and it just had an issue where it was just a bunch of songs and just going through every style, and it just had little riffs from all these different songs. And I think that was where I learned the Who stuff. There was some disco stuff in there. There's that one disco exercise I may have mentioned on like the last live stream, that whole thing. But that whole thing came out of just that bass magazine. I think there was some more funky stuff. I think a little bit of James Brown stuff was in there. And of course, somewhere in high school, I got into Rush and tried playing all that, you know. I remember getting together with friends and trying to play YYZ a whole bunch. That's always fun. Apparently, to practice that again. Was it I can't remember all the bass breaks, but you get the idea. So I got into Rush somewhere in high school, probably from the same bass magazines that got me into Yes and all these other bands. I remember I had a wall just plastered full of pictures of all these different bass players that inspired me. And I remember Chris Squire was on there, and he had his triple neck bass. And I had John Entwistle up there with his like giant collection of basses behind him, and just a whole bunch of cool pictures that were just exciting to just look at that wall and just get inspiration from all those players. And you know, Cliff Burton was on there, and just a whole bunch of people. I ended up getting a Beatles poster for the door that, you know, hung down the door. So no, I like the Beatles a lot, but I really liked listening to them more. I'm trying to remember which songs I would have learned from the Beatles back then. There was a Jocko version of Blackbird. I don't think I have enough. That's it. I can't do it. Yeah, but all that stuff. So that one was really cool because it taught me how to do the raking technique. So if you want to learn the raking technique, that's probably the best song for practicing it. Right? Because you end up going, you rake all the way through with one finger and then hit the other finger on the same string. So like the beginning of it's 6th fret on the G string, 7th fret on the D string, and the open A string twice. So it's like you rake through all 3 strings and then hit the other note. You know, so all that stuff. I don't think I learned it all the way through, but I learned that much of it. And then the harmonics from the Amazing Grace version that Victor Wooten did. And then just some other songs that Jocko was on. Going back to Jocko, we did a version of Birdland in high school big band, and I just wasn't a good enough reader to read some of those little fills that they snuck in there at the time. And so because I wasn't as good of a reader, the other bass player that was there got to play songs like that. But I'd have to work really hard on the songs because I wasn't a good sight reader at the time. And I'm an okay sight reader now. I don't know that I'd say I'm a good one now, but you get the idea. Yeah. So Birdland was a cool one. So Blackbird and Birdland. And then I remember just his whole word of mouth CD was really good. So if you haven't heard Jocko's word of mouth CD, get it or stream it or whatever you want to do, but listen to it all the way through because it has a lot of really cool things on there. The first song on the album is just kind of like a chaotic kind of thing. I'm trying to remember what it's called, Crisis, I think. And it's just like, it's almost like a free jazz kind of thing with Jocko just walking really intensely underneath all of this like craziness that's going on top. And then of course he has this version of Blackbird. I'm trying to remember the names of some of the other songs. The title track, Word of Mouth, has a distorted bass solo. So if you want to hear Jocko with some cool distortion doing some very interesting stuff, check that one out. But yeah, I didn't learn how to play all that, there's just so much music in the world to like try to learn how to play all of it. It's impossible really. But it's fun trying to do a lot of things. Stanley Clarke's another guy that I got into. But I probably got into him because of things like Les Claypool mentioning that he was inspired by him, Oh, sorry. Whoops. I can't remember how it goes. Anyway, Silly Putty was a fun one to try to play. I can't remember it at all. No, it was... I can't remember, but that was a lot of fun to play too. Cool. So okay, we got some questions on here. How long have you been playing the Kala? The cutaway looks straighter than my Kala F-hole. It's still pretty rounded. So this one is a Kala. Do you have the? I'm guessing if you're calling it the F-hole, that you have the Journeyman as well. I don't think it's really that straight. It might have just been that I had it really low in the camera shot, but it's still got a curve to it. I'm not sure if you can see it very well there. I'm not sure if they changed that or not, but I haven't noticed anything like that. So that's interesting. How long have I been playing the red Kala? I've had this one for, I want to say something like 3 years. It may have only been 2, but I think it was something like 3 years. But yeah. And then, Seth's mentioning Stanley Clarke was just on the original recording of Spain. Yeah, I did know that. So that was kind of cool. Kind of cool hearing that. I've tried to play Spain on the upright. It's painful, just to say the least. It looks more like your Gypsy Jazz guitar. Could it just be the different color, or is it a different model of the bass? Because I feel like the Journeyman has kind of always just been like this. I could double check and make sure they didn't make changes to it, but I don't think they really made an additional different kind that has more of an art to it. So I just kind of wonder. I don't know, but if it's a different model, let me know. But I thought they just had that one as far as the F-holes go, that they just had the Journeyman. That's my understanding. But yeah, Spain, that one, that song should also be mentioned because just the idea of that song kind of led to some ideas for some of my original music. So same bass, red. Maybe it was made earlier. I'm not sure. You're saying maybe mine was made earlier, or maybe yours was. They were fairly new when I got mine. They had fairly recently come out with the red one when I got mine, so I'm not sure if it would have been an early one. Maybe a later one, because sometimes some of them I noticed have a white nut rather than a black nut on them. So if you have the one that has a white nut there, and then some of them I've seen with a magnetic backplate, mine has screw on. So it could be that they did make those other changes when they made that change. But I didn't think they made it look other than, slightly different parts like that. I didn't think redid the curves or anything. Anyway, going back to Spain. He was playing upright. I've tried to do it on upright, but it's tough to get it up to speed for sure. But that one influenced my song Transitions, because I have a part at the end of Transitions that's like. That whole thing. We'll see. Gross. Right. So I was trying to think of like, well, what could I do that kind of reminds me of Spain, something where the whole band locks in on a lick like that. And it didn't really look the same, but it wasn't really sound the same. Sorry, I just read something at the same time as talking. But but anyway, it didn't really sound the same, but it was just that idea of everybody locking in on a riff and it being kind of, I don't want to say Spanish sounding, but kind of. Mine's not really as Spanish sounding as Spain. I always like this lick though. Yeah, so Laurie asks, I know you play upright and U-bass. Do you also play regular sized electric bass? Believe it or not, that's actually my main instrument. So I've been playing that one the longest. And yes, so I'm probably the best on that instrument, although U-bass is so similar to it that I can play most of those things on here. But yeah, this is more like an electric bass technique where I'm playing over the top like this. That's why I have so much comfort playing quickly, because that one is my main instrument. So when I play wedding gigs and things of that nature, I usually, unless they ask for the upright specifically, I bring the I'm using a Squier vintage, was it not vintage vibe, classic vibe 70s jazz. So yes, so that's my normal axe. It's in the case right now, but you can see the top of the case in me right there. So right here, if you can see that. But yeah, I do typically play that, and then I play a little bit of guitar too. So you can see I have an acoustic guitar back there, an Ovation, and then the Squier guitar over here as well. But guitar's not my main instrument, so the basses are nicer, of course. But yes, I do play that as well. Awesome. Yeah. So so my technique, I kind of do a hybrid of things sometimes. The 1 finger per fret thing comes from more the electric thing, of course. And when I play on electric though, because of playing upright, sometimes I use more of that, first finger, second finger, and then using the other two at the same time when I'm down low on the bass. So I kind of do this hybrid technique where it starts out like upright positions and then turns into 1 finger per fret somewhere around the 5th fret. So cool. So I don't know if you do that too, or if you found that your upright playing has affected your electric playing and vice versa, just from doing both. But it's kind of interesting to me because it's made some things easier using upright technique applied to electric. More Jaco things. I think when I was in high school, there were a few songs that were just really like very, very hard for me to play. And so, I wanted to be able to get them down. One of those was Teen Town, of course. You know, all that stuff. So that was one that was like hard for me to do, that I still have to like work to maintain. Obviously there were a couple things there that could have been better. And then sometimes I think it was a little bit after high school, I was preparing for college, trying to prepare for the audition. So I started taking lessons from a guy named Joseph Patrick Moore, excellent bass player. He got me to work on a lot of bebop stuff. So he got me to buy this Charlie Parker book. And so I worked on things like Donna Lee, which who knows if I can play it anymore, but you know, like cleanly or not. Yeah. Okay, almost. But you get the idea. And it's weird because I had to relearn it for Ubass because certain finger positions I was doing on the electric were just too close together once I got onto the Ubass. So instead of doing like middle to pinky, back to middle, like I was talking about, that upright technique arranged for the electric, then I had to use just my ring finger again rather than going right, using my pinky for pinky to middle to index like I was doing on the electric bass. It just didn't work anymore. So so it was kind of hard to adjust that for Ubass as well. And when I go back to electric, I have to adjust back and play with the pinky again. So it's a lot of interesting stuff and a lot of work, but it's fun. It's fun trying to do all those things. But yeah, I've noticed that that working on the upright technique has changed the way that I approach the electric bass. And then it's funny because coming to the Ubass, it's like I go from using those two fingers together to now separating them again and just using these fingers to do a lot of the songs that I practiced with the upright technique on electric. So it's a very different strategy there. And if you alter your technique, beware, you know, that on these different instruments, sometimes you do have to do things a little bit differently to get them to work out. I know they're tuned the same. The scale just makes it way different technique-wise. But the logic is still there. So if you understand the logic on one instrument, you can kind of figure out how to play the other instruments. It just, you may not be able to play as fast or as in tune on the upright or things like that unless you practice specific technique for the upright, or, you know, changing things for the Ubass. If you go from electric bass to Ubass, if you always did one finger per fret on electric, it should be an easy adjustment. But if you did some of that using your pinky for certain notes where one finger per fret really would be your ring finger, then you have to adjust when you come back to Ubass. But it's probably better for your wrist on electric bass to use your, depending on how large your hands are. If you have massive hands like Stanley Clarke, I've gotten to shake his hand before, and that was crazy. His hands are freaking huge. So, you know, so seeing him play the upright and do all these things, it's different for like a normal person with, you know, smaller hands or whatever compared to him playing. You have to approach it completely differently than him. But totally interesting and cool stuff anyway. Does anyone else have any other questions? Anybody else want to mention some music that was nostalgic to them? I know Seth mentioned a lot of things, which was very cool. But anybody else, anything that we didn't mention, any bass players or anything, or any music that's very nostalgic to you that you learned the bass part on, just anything of that nature. I got to be honest, these wedding gigs are a lot of fun because we end up playing a lot of like Motown stuff, you know, with the enough. So that the bass line after the other part on the verse is like a busier version of that first part. And then I'm trying to remember the chorus. You know, there's just a lot of cool bass lines within that Motown stuff, and it's been fun. Yeah, learning that Jamerson line, learning some other Jamerson lines for the weddings, because that's where you're most likely to be able to play these songs, right? Because they're all like love songs, or you know, a lot of them are. So you end up playing a lot of those lines, and it's been kind of fun. Another one that was a lot of fun was recently we did the Jackson 5, I Want You Back, in one of these weddings too. You know, all that stuff. So it's just been kind of fun getting to play all these lines that I learned outside of things, and then you know, the wedding songs, they actually get played, you know, and then classics like Stand By Me. So all those are, I think, becoming nostalgic or whatnot. I like all that. Yeah, I don't get to play any Graham Central bass lines and weddings these days, but there are some cool things. Yeah, Larry Graham's an awesome bass player. I never learned the bass line how, but I wanted to. Just some other things like that. But yeah, like back in the day, I would just learn a whole bunch of things. If somebody said somebody was a good bass player, I'd look up top bass lines by them and try to learn those songs. So it's like when I got into Rush, you know, I ended up buying the anthology book and working through a lot of things like, you know, and the trees. What was it? What is it? All the lines are really cool and stuff too. So basically, I would probably buy a magazine, read through the articles on the magazine, get fired up by it, and then go to whatever illegal downloading site they had at the time. I think we had LimeWire, and just download like as many songs by that artist as I could, and then I would go through and try to learn a few of them. And I think that's how I found Marcus Miller. I think that's how I found, you know, Yes, Rush, King Crimson. Although I didn't really learn how to play much King Crimson or any really. Maybe I tried to imitate it and do it by ear, but nothing memorable on that. And just a whole bunch of things like that. And then, of course, when I'd start playing gigs with different people, we'd end up playing a lot of songs. And there have been a few bands that played other things that were nostalgic, like The Darkness, I Believe in a Thing Called Love. Not really the hardest lines to play, but kind of fun to play them, you know. That line's kind of fun. And then the Muse song Hysteria, I ended up playing that one in a group, but honestly, I learned that one just because I think a student asked for it my first year of teaching, and I think I was 19 when I started teaching, and so it was and so it's like that one of those where it was kind of hard for me to do, and I think the hardest thing about that line is doing it so many times in a row. And so then I ended up playing in a band where, you know, that guy liked a lot of the same songs that I did, and we'd go and play shows and play that kind of stuff in there, and none of the bands that I knew around were playing that kind of stuff at bars. So it was just a lot of fun to play a gig with him doing that kind of stuff. And you know, stuff like Crazy Train was on his list too, which I know a lot of people do that one, but was just kind of fun because it's like I'd taught these songs so many times, or I had, fun learning them, and all these other things, and finally getting a chance to play them with a band was kind of nice. So yeah, so it's just kind of cool getting to play weddings now, and getting to play some of these bass lines that I learned, or that I like when I went through the Motown phase, and got into all these Jamerson lines. Now getting to play them is just kind of exciting. So that's something I didn't really expect out of the wedding band, was that I would enjoy it as much as I do. But if you ever get a chance to play in a wedding band, I'd say do it, because you're going to have people in the audience that are actually excited to hear the songs that, a lot of them are requests that they had. And just things like that are really cool. So Jay Freeman says Waylon Jennings was Buddy Holly's bass player. I didn't know that. That's pretty crazy. So very interesting fact. I'll have to look that up and see if I can find any footage or anything. That's cool. You Dukes of Hazzard guy. Huh. Very interesting. I had no clue about that. I'll have to look into that, but that does explain why he has an interesting style or something. I'll have to look into it. Cool. Did not know that at all. So yeah, and then of course there was upright bass players that influenced me more in college. So Ray Brown, just because his melodic soloing, although it reminds me of college, and I think college I have a mixed feeling about. If you've ever seen the movie Whiplash, I think some of the professors at some of the schools like to think they're like that. And that idea of a concept for a movie didn't come out of thin air. I think they obviously Hollywoodize it and make it way worse. But the idea that they put a lot of pressure on the students, and then of course the students put a lot of pressure on themselves. And a lot of times it's just really unnecessary stuff when you're in college and you're, like trying to learn Coltrane saxophone lines on the upright bass, of course not being able to play them full speed, but being able to play them really slowly or whatever. Just a lot of that stuff is cool, but kind of unnecessary. And the amount of time you have to learn all that stuff is just very heavy pressure. And I think it does cause me to sometimes have a love relationship with genres of music like jazz, where sometimes I really enjoy it, and other times it's just kind of like it just like leaves a bad taste in my mouth because of kind of how I was taught to learn it, and just the sort of attitudes that kind of go along with certain things about learning stuff in college. So I hate to say it that way, but if you've been to music school, you might know what I mean. But it's like I still like the music a lot. It's just kind of there's some weird feelings associated with playing that stuff and listening to that stuff and everything that I'm still trying to kind of clear out so I can enjoy it as much as I feel like I should be able to. But all of Ray Brown's stuff I just enjoy listening to, because he just had such a really cool sound. And I was fortunate enough with a couple of other bass players. We went and saw a John Clayton clinic, and he ended up with Ray Brown's bass, and he had it there. And, I was just saying, that's so awesome that you get to play, Ray Brown's bass, and, that's so cool. And he's like, here, y'all want to play it? And he got us up one at a time to kind of play Ray Brown's bass, which was one of the coolest memories I have, But yeah, so that kind of thing, there's nostalgia there. Although from college, I'm not sure how far I can go and call it nostalgia. I don't know. For me, that was like a little bit more than 10 years ago when that stuff happened. So it's cool stuff. And even though I had that feeling about college, I mean, the professors were really good. It's just there were a few that maybe did the unnecessary thing, like they think they're preparing you for the real world, where the big band, the people that run big bands were known for being jerks. Like there are a lot of Buddy Rich stories, and there are a lot of just stories about various band leaders just being very strict about things and other things like that. And okay, the movie One L is similar to Whiplash. Cool. Okay. So, yeah, it's just, there were a few people there that thought cussing out the big band was the way to go, and just, other things like that. It's just kind of like, when you're paying money to go somewhere to be trained for stuff, I understand that they feel like they're training you for the real world, but really it's just kind of like I ended up not getting the degree because of people like that. And if they're watching this video, sorry to say that, but I quit because of stuff like that, because of going to a big band, not getting to play, and then having to hear the whole band getting cussed out for not practicing enough. Maybe I didn't practice enough for that day anyway, and it wouldn't have mattered if we had played the songs I was on because there were multiple bass players. But it's just kind of like the concept of I'm going into debt for several years to become a musician. Sorry, I didn't realize it's going to become a rant. I apologize, guys. But, only to be cussed out and not even get to play, certain days or whatever. It was kind of like, that was one of the things that put the nail in the coffin of just like, and then another one was, they had a thing called concert attendance, where we had to attend other people's concerts and you had to attend a certain amount per year. And of course my gig schedule got in the way of that. So, it was kind of like, well, they're like, well, you're here to learn how to perform. It's like, but I'm out there performing, and that stuff can't count towards this. So there's a lot of politics with school and stuff. And I think Whiplash got some of that stuff right. So they did exaggerate certain things, and there are certain things where I don't know that there are any professors that are really quite that bad. And I'm not sure that the amount of the way that kind of stuff messes with your mind as an impressionable, 19-year-old or 20-year-old or whatever. I don't think it would be so bad as the whole scene where he gets into a wreck and all this other stuff. But some of those instructors, even the scene where it's like you meet your instructor outside of the classroom at a at one of their gigs, and they're much nicer to you in person than they are while you're in the classroom, and stuff. All that stuff happened to me. So I mean, I think they were really pulling from personal experience on a lot of that stuff. And a lot of people disagree with them because they went to different schools, but there are some schools that are like that. And I just encourage, if you're an instructor, or if you know other instructors, just to kind of encourage them to just be nice and nurturing to their students, because that other stuff is just kind of, it's not helpful. Basically, it's just really annoying. And I think, so I have a mixed feeling about jazz because of that. Sometimes when I'm on a jazz gig, I'll have higher anxiety than I would if it was just a rock or a pop gig. It's not really from feeling, not prepared for the gig or whatever. It's just some lingering feelings from that. So it's kind of interesting. So Jay, it's awesome that you quit. You're a great teacher, and to lack usual ego musicians have. I probably have some of it. I try to check myself and realize that it's kind of stupid, and just to always stay humbled, because there's always someone better than you. And I think somebody said it this way: there's always somewhere out there, there's a 14-year-old Asian girl that can play better than you. So, take that as it is, and just be kind of humbled and stuff. I think with jazz, the thing was, it was harder for me to pick songs out by ear, and you get thrown into more situations where you had to know the song immediately, and they expected you to have more songs memorized. And if you didn't, you should at least know the logic of how jazz songs work, so that you could guess pretty well and, make the song work and not get lost in the song form and yada, yada, yada. And so there's just a lot more to keep track of. But I think there's extra anxiety in addition to that kind of stuff, where I would have just been able to use my ear more and relax a little bit if my brain wasn't going overly analytical and, trying to do things. So I think if you do go to college for music, you have to really go out and play a lot on the bandstand to kind of work through some of those things that really don't apply to when you're actually on stage. But yeah, it's crazy. But it's good stuff. I mean, if you can play it, it's really fun music to play. It's really rewarding, and you get to express yourself a little bit more if you do get comfortable with all those extra things. There's a lot of room for improvisation, even on the bass. So, that's why when people ask, like, how can I play walking lines? It's like, well, we can write a walking line out for a song that you do, but there's so many different ways to approach a walking line that just saying, hey, can you teach me how to play a walking line, is kind of like, I have to teach you for how to play a walking line, or just teach you somebody else's pre-written walking line that they improvised. kind of thing, or that they wrote or something. Or I could write one for somebody based on the stuff that I've acquired over the years. But yeah, jazz is different in that respect. I think with other songs, you just go and you just learn the song. But you could do that with jazz. You could just transcribe the bass lines that other people are already playing. And we did a lot of that in school too. On upright, it's a lot harder because a lot of those players were a little bit out of tune. And, you know, it sounded fine on the recording. They weren't so out that it was like crazy. But sometimes you hear a note and you're like, did they intend this note or that note? They're right in the middle of the two. And it wasn't a free jazz thing where they were doing it on purpose. It was just kind of an in the moment thing because they're improvising, you know. But yeah. So I guess all that being said, if you decide to learn jazz, just take from people that don't take it so dang seriously, and I think that would help a little bit. And then use your ears more. Listen to songs. Try to pick out the bass lines. Try to pick out the melodies. Listen to a whole lot of different versions of it. And the other thing about school that's kind of interesting is, you know, with every subject, they try to cram so much into a short amount of time that a lot of that stuff doesn't sink in for, you know, while you're at school. It's like you have to it's like you might be on the bandstand one day just playing with somebody, you know, just playing bass with some band and realize what something meant in college and go, oh, and then start just throwing it into what you're doing at that point. So I really feel like that's another part of it. But I don't want to bad talk school and everything. I just think there are certain instructors where I don't understand the importance of trying to recreate the big band scenarios where the, you know, very edgy, angry band leaders whipped everybody into shape like it's the military or something. And like, I understand that there are band leaders like that, but I don't think these days it really needs to be like that. And I think some of the best players are the ones that were nurtured, not like tried to beat them with a stick to get it right, you know, that kind of thing. But to each their own. You could argue that both methods work for different people. So, yeah. And you could argue that some of the people that went under that method are further along in their career than I am. So who knows? But I think you can also build up resentment and just decide there are a lot of people that will probably never play jazz again because they went to jazz school. So anyway, that wasn't what this is about. This is about nostalgia, and there were a lot of positive things. I was introduced to a whole lot of things. I had an excellent bass instructor at that school, and you know, his name was Robert Dixon, and he taught me a lot of stuff. He got us to learn a lot of Ray Brown stuff, and you know, just really understood what I think, like, you know, bass is about and everything, and just kind of, you know, encouraged us to listen to cool things and to kind of transcribe a bunch of really good music. And he was just a very valuable resource. And then there were a lot of other teachers there that were great like that too. Cool. So now that we've got 4 people still with me after that long, anybody else have any questions or anything about the U-bass, or want to mention some of their influences, or just nostalgic that they like playing, that you like playing the bass line of, that reminds you of like when you first started playing, or just the first time that bass made an impact on your life or something? I think kind of cool too. So if anybody wants to share that, just kind of let me know. Trying to think. I know bits and pieces of a lot of things too. Maybe I'll just keep playing things like that until I hear things you guys want to say. So you can also try naming the songs if you want to. So that's all I got of that one. Let me think of another bass line. What is your favorite bass line written by a female? Okay, so bass line, not just soloists and stuff. Tal Wilkenfeld plays some really good solos. Esperanza Spalding has some good ones, but I can't think of a specific one that comes to mind as far as like upright stuff. I know that the what is it, Boogie Yogi Yogi, cool bass line that's written by a female. I don't know if that's my favorite, but it's a cool one. Man, written by a female. Let me think about some other ones. Carol Kay probably has like a billion of them, so that's pretty cool. Oh, are you guessing the song? The one that I was playing earlier. Oh, sorry. It's called School Day. This one's School Days by what's his name? Stanley Clarke. And then what was the other one I was doing? But I'm trying to think of other female players, because there are a lot of good female bass players. I'm just trying to think of bass lines specifically. Carol Kay probably has like 100 of them, that I really like. I just need to go and learn them basically to know. Yeah, and then Esperanza Spalding, for whatever reason, I can't think of any of the names of her songs off the top of my head. There's a version of it's a song called "Tell Him" that she played at the White House, and just everything about that performance, her voice, what she played on the bass, which wasn't really much of it wasn't just a bass line, just kind of doing a chordal thing that was really cool. But yeah, all that. So 2 songs for Enoch, I think. 2 songs that take me back to the beginning of learning bass: "The Joker" by Steve Miller and "Stand By Me." Yeah, "Stand By Me" is going to be one of those classic ones I think a lot of people learn really, really early, and the other ones. And then, and Seth Says, the stuff that Carol Kay did with the Beach Boys. Yeah, so I was thinking a lot of those bass lines, I don't know them note for note. I'm kind of ashamed to say it. But Carol Kay has a ton of stuff. There's kind of this funny video of her interview of her talking about some stuff, and then teaching Gene Simmons how to play some different kinds of bass lines and her approach with the pick and stuff. And it's just kind of funny watching her teach Gene Simmons how to play some stuff, and just kind of how thrilled he is to learn it. It was just kind of cool watching that. I'm not the biggest Kiss fan, but I mean, he's a bass player. So the Joker, yeah. Yeah, so there's that one, and then "Stand By Me" I played earlier. Oh, "Good Vibrations," yeah. I never played the bass line, at least not note for note on things like that. Sometimes I do learn some Beach Boys songs to play for like the weddings, but I mostly just kind of get the chords down and just kind of play along with that, rather than playing the exact note for note line if I only have a couple days before the gig and have to learn multiple songs. But yeah, that's a great song. "Good Vibrations" is a great one. One of the ones I played with some people was "Don't Worry Baby." That one's a really good one too. Oh yeah, Lenny Kravitz did have a chick player too. That's true. And I think he even had a female and sang a chick bass player on it. Be the best way to say it, for me to say it. I think he might have had he had a female drummer. I want to say the drummer was married to Santana, if I'm right about that. I'm trying to remember, but he had a really, really good drummer, and I'm trying to remember her dang name. Is it Cindy Blackman or something? Let's see. Yeah, Cindy Blackman. So, yeah. Let me make sure I was right about the Carlos Santana stuff. Okay, yeah, she was married to him. I'm not sure if she still is, but probably. Anyway, but she also plays drums with Lenny Kravitz sometimes, so that's pretty cool. And then and Wilson on on good vibrations. I'm just trying to follow what you're saying, Laurie. But yeah, that's some good stuff. So guys, I'm gonna go ahead and call it for now. Oh, Gail Dorsey, another great one. Let me see if I can think of a couple more, because there are a lot of great female bass players. I can't pronounce her name. Michelle, what's her last name? Oh my god, that one. I cannot pronounce her last name to save my life. Ndegeocello. Cello. I can't pronounce her last name, but it's Michelle, but it's spelled differently than I've tried to type it in. Meshell, and she's a really good bass player. What is it? MC Divinity or something. She can rap and play bass at the same time, but she's a bass player, and she was on a Victor Wooten tour that I saw, and that was really cool. Seeing her play, she's really good, and she'll play and rap at the same time. She's super phenomenal. I believe she plays with, she at least played with Beyonce. She was Beyonce's player for a while, but she's great. And I'm trying to think of other maybe more well-known female bassists. I mean, Tal Wilkenfeld's one of my favorites, but that's because of her solos. I mean, she's a phenomenal bass player, but what really stands out, in my mind, is her solos. Oh, cool. Gail Dorsey is Lenny Kravitz bass player. I didn't know that. That's cool. Yeah, she is the one that played with Bowie. That's a good point. So there were a lot of good Bowie bass lines. So I'm sure some of that was her, but I'd have to look up which ones are her. I'm trying to think of other female bass players. There are a lot, I promise. Oh my goodness. But yeah, if you have any more, just leave them in the comments below. I'm going to go ahead and go for now, but thank y'all so much for hanging out. It's been kind of fun just reliving nostalgia, going through the years of stuff that I listened to and enjoyed playing, just kind of growing up and hearing what you guys like. So thank y'all so much for sharing that with me too. And I will see you guys on Tuesday for the regular scheduled video, and Thursday for another live stream at 7 p.m. Eastern. All right, have a good one. Bye, everybody.